Across the United States, gang violence has left a trail of fear, destruction, and tragedy. From inner-city streets to maximum security prisons, gang members have built criminal empires through drug trafficking, extortion, murder, and intimidation. While some operate in the shadows, others have become infamous for their brutality and leadership within deadly organizations. In every state, one figure stands out, a person whose name has become synonymous with danger, power, and criminal dominance. This is a journey through America's dark underworld, revealing the most dangerous gang member in each state, one chilling profile at a time. The life of Benjamin Davis, founder of the 211 Crew. Benjamin Davis, the notorious founder of the white supremacist gang known as the 211 Crew, emerged from the violent corridors of Colorado's prison system in the early 1990s. Born and raised in Denver, Davis's descent into gang life began after being incarcerated for a robbery conviction. It was behind bars that he forged one of Colorado's most violent prison gangs, one that would later spread its influence beyond prison walls. The name 211 Crew derives from the California Penal Code for robbery, but Davis's gang was about far more than theft. With a deep ideology rooted in white supremacy, the 211 Crew quickly gained a fearsome reputation for brutal assaults, racial violence, and strategic alliances with larger national gangs like the Aryan Brotherhood. Davis's leadership style was both charismatic and calculated. He organized his members under a strict code of loyalty and racial solidarity, enforcing discipline through fear and violence. The gang's reach expanded rapidly, infiltrating multiple Colorado prisons and establishing a presence on the streets of Denver and surrounding cities. In 1997, Davis's influence reached national headlines when the 211 Crew was linked to the murder of Colorado prison chief Tom Clements, orchestrated by a paroled gang member. Though Davis denied direct involvement, the incident underscored the danger posed by the organization he created. Benjamin Davis was found dead behind bars. Yet the 211 Crew continues to operate, its legacy of racial hatred and gang violence a haunting reminder of Davis's dark vision. His story is one of transformation, of how one man, from within a prison cell, built a brotherhood of hate that thrives in the shadows of America's correctional system. The 211th Crew stands as a symbol of radicalization, violence, and the enduring danger of prison-born gangs. The life of Michael Msky Jr., alleged crime boss of Honolulu. Michael Msky Jr., once known as a successful Honolulu businessman, is now at the center of one of the most explosive criminal cases in Hawaii's history. Born and raised in the Aloha State, Msky cultivated an image of a legitimate entrepreneur operating a pest control business and other ventures. But beneath the surface, authorities allege he was the mastermind of a violent and secretive organized crime group. Federal prosecutors claim Msky led a sprawling criminal enterprise that engaged in murder, drug trafficking, kidnapping, bank fraud, and racketeering. Known on the streets as Bro, Msky allegedly used his business as a front to launder money and run operations that reached beyond the Hawaiian Islands. His crew reportedly included former MMA fighters, corrupted police officers, and loyal enforcers who carried out brutal acts in his name. The turning point came with the 2016 disappearance of 21-year-old Jonathan Fraser, a close friend of Msky's deceased son. Investigators believe Fraser was murdered in retaliation for a car accident that killed Msky's son years earlier. Though the body was never found, Fraser's disappearance triggered a sweeping federal investigation. In 2020, the FBI arrested Msky and indicted him on multiple federal charges, painting him as the head of a violent criminal syndicate operating in Paradise. Despite pleading not guilty, Msky's case has exposed the dark underbelly of organized crime in Hawaii, a place often viewed as peaceful and idyllic. As he awaits trial, Michael Msky Jr.'s fall from respected businessman to alleged kingpin serves as a chilling reminder. Behind the sun-soaked beaches of Honolulu, a network of power, loyalty, and fear once operated in the shadows. His story is not just about crime, it's about the dual lives people lead and the darkness that can lurk behind a smile. The life of Telly Hankton, New Orleans' most feared drug kingpin. Telly Hankton, once a quiet figure in New Orleans' uptown neighborhood, rose to become one of the city's most feared and violent drug kingpins. Known on the street simply as Telly, he led a powerful and ruthless criminal enterprise that left a trail of blood across the Crescent City. Born into a well-known local family, Hankton used charm and wealth to mask his growing empire of drugs, violence, and intimidation. By the early 2000s, he had built a multi-million-dollar drug trafficking network that controlled entire neighborhoods. But it wasn't just about drugs. Hankton's crew was notorious for eliminating rivals, often in broad daylight. One of the most infamous murders attributed to Hankton was the 2008 killing of Darnell Stewart, a man gunned down in front of witnesses on a busy street. Despite being charged, Hankton was initially acquitted, leading to widespread fear that he was untouchable. Witnesses were terrified to testify. Some were murdered themselves. Federal authorities later claimed that Hankton's network carried out killings with military precision to silence enemies and protect his empire. In 2013, after a sweeping federal investigation, Hankton was indicted under the RICO Act, along with his cousins and fellow gang members. The charges included murder, racketeering, and drug distribution. Prosecutors described him as the most dangerous criminal in New Orleans. Telly Hankton was eventually sentenced to life in federal prison, his reign finally brought to an end. But the legacy of violence he left behind still haunts parts of New Orleans today. His story is a chilling reminder of how one man, driven by power and revenge, can terrorize a city and silence a community. From the shadows of uptown to the spotlight of a federal courtroom, Telly Hankton's empire of fear came crashing down, one conviction at a time. The life of Frank Salem, former New England mob boss. Frank Salem, known as Cadillac Frank, was a towering figure in the shadowy world of organized crime in New England. Rising from the gritty streets of Boston, Salem's journey from street enforcer to mob boss spanned decades, marked by violence, betrayal, and ultimately, justice. Born in 1933, Salem got his start in the underworld during the 1960s as a hitman for the Patriarca crime family. His reputation for cold-blooded efficiency earned him respect and fear within the mafia ranks. In 1972, he was convicted for attempting to murder a lawyer with a car bomb and spent over 15 years in prison. Upon his release in the late 1980s, Salem climbed the ranks and eventually became boss of the New England mob during a period of transition and instability. But his leadership was short-lived. Federal authorities closed in, and in the 1990s, Salem was indicted on racketeering charges alongside infamous mobster Whitey Bulger and corrupt FBI agent John Connolly. Facing serious time, Salem made a shocking decision. He flipped. He entered the Witness Protection Program and testified against former associates, helping dismantle parts of the criminal network he once led. But the past would come back to haunt him. In 2016, Salem was arrested for the 1993 murder of Stephen DeSero, a Boston nightclub owner who allegedly knew too much. Salem was convicted in 2018 and sentenced to life in prison. Frank Salem died in federal custody in 2022 at the age of 89. His life was a reflection of the rise and fall of the American Mafia, filled with power, loyalty, betrayal, and violence. From car bombs to courtrooms, Cadillac Frank left a legacy as one of the last true mob bosses of the old-school era. The life of Melvin Canales Saldana, violent enforcer of MS-13. Melvin Canales Saldana, a name that strikes fear in communities plagued by gang violence, rose through the brutal ranks of MS-13 as a ruthless enforcer and leader. Born in El Salvador and later entering the United States, Saldanha became deeply embedded in the Omaha, Nebraska branch of the notorious international gang Mara Salvatrucha, better known as MS-13. As a member of one of the world's most feared criminal organizations, Saldanha earned his reputation through violence, intimidation, and absolute loyalty to the gang's brutal code. MS-13 is known for its savagery, wielding machetes, carrying out public executions, and recruiting teenagers to commit murders. Saldanha was no exception. He played a key role in organizing murders, drug trafficking operations, and retaliatory attacks against rival gang members and perceived traitors. In 2020, federal authorities arrested Saldanha as part of a larger effort to dismantle MS-13 cells operating in the Midwest. He was charged with conspiracy to commit murder in aid of racketeering and other violent crimes. Prosecutors accused him of ordering and participating in killings designed to enforce discipline within the gang and to send a message to the broader community. MS-13 does not forgive. Saldanha's arrest and prosecution marked a major victory in the government's fight against transnational gangs. In court, testimonies described him as a cold and calculated leader who gave kill orders and watched as bodies disappeared, all to protect the gang's dominance. Today, Melvin Canales Saldanha is serving a lengthy federal prison sentence. His life represents the deadly grip of MS-13 on American soil, a story of crime, loyalty, and the terrifying consequences of unchecked power. Though behind bars, the scars of his violence remain etched in the neighborhoods he once terrorized. The life of Eddie Big Ed Lotto, Patriarca Mafia Capo of Rhode Island. Eddie Big Ed Lotto was a powerful and feared figure in the underworld of New England, serving as a longtime capo in the notorious Patriarca crime family. Born and raised in Providence, Rhode Island, Lotto became deeply involved in organized crime during the Mafia's golden era in the 1970s and 1980s, a time when the Patriarca family controlled much of the criminal activity across Rhode Island and Massachusetts. Lotto quickly rose through the ranks, known for his imposing presence, strategic thinking, and unwavering loyalty to the family. As a capo, he managed crews involved in extortion, loan sharking, illegal gambling, and racketeering. He was also known to mediate disputes, enforce discipline, and collect tribute from street-level associates. Behind closed doors, Lotto was a trusted figure, privy to the inner workings of the Mafia's highest levels. His criminal career caught up with him in the 1990s and again in the 2000s, when federal investigators began cracking down on organized crime in New England. In 2011, Lotto was arrested in a major FBI sting and indicted on racketeering and extortion charges. Wiretaps and undercover operations revealed Lotto's role in shaking down strip clubs and collecting illegal payments in exchange for protection. In 2012, Lotto pled guilty and was sentenced to prison. Though he served his time and was later released, his name remains synonymous with the old-school mafia structure that once dominated Rhode Island's criminal landscape. Eddie Big Ed Lotto's life is a reflection of the rise and slow decline of traditional organized crime in America. A relic of a bygone era, Lotto's story reminds us of a time when mobsters ruled cities not from shadows, but from the front row of every corner bar and union hall. The life of Peter Rollik, founder of the Sex Money Murder Gang. Peter Rollik, also known as Pistol Pete, is one of the most feared and influential gang leaders in the history of New York street violence. As the founder of the Sex Money Murder Gang, a brutal subset of the Bloods, Rollik's rise from the Bronx streets to the top of a deadly criminal enterprise was marked by bloodshed, power, and ruthless ambition. Born in the late 1960s, Rollik grew up in the poverty-stricken neighborhoods of the Bronx during the crack epidemic of the 1980s and early 90s. Seeking control and respect, he formed Sex Money Murder while in prison in the early 1990s, quickly turning it into one of the most violent bloodsets on the East Coast. His gang became known for its willingness to kill without hesitation, using extreme violence to dominate the drug trade across New York and beyond. From his prison cell, Rollik ordered assassinations, managed drug distribution, and enforced loyalty through fear. His influence spread into the streets of the Bronx, Newark, and even as far as Florida. By the mid-1990s, the FBI and NYPD labeled Rollik a top criminal threat. In 2000, Rollik was convicted of multiple murders, racketeering, and conspiracy charges. He received a life sentence and was placed in solitary confinement at the ADX Florence Supermax prison in Colorado, where he remains to this day. Despite his incarceration, the gang he created still operates under his name and legacy. Peter Rollik's life is a chilling example of how one man, even behind bars, can build a criminal empire rooted in fear, violence, and absolute control. His story is not just about gang leadership, it's about the lasting impact of organized street terror in America's inner cities. The life of Kaboni Savage, Philadelphia's most ruthless drug kingpin. Kaboni Savage, once a rising boxer from the streets of North Philadelphia, became one of the most feared and ruthless drug lords in American history. His name is forever etched in infamy for orchestrating one of the deadliest acts of witness intimidation the country has ever seen. Born in 1975, Savage grew up in a tough neighborhood plagued by drugs and violence. He found early promise in boxing, even competing professionally. But after a brief career in the ring, he turned to the streets, building a drug empire that controlled large portions of North Philly. Known for his paranoia and brutal enforcement tactics, Savage operated with absolute dominance, using murder as a tool to protect his territory and silence rivals. Savage's criminal reign reached a horrifying peak in 2004 when he ordered the firebombing of a row house belonging to the family of a cooperating witness. The attack killed 6 people, including 4 children. It was one of the most shocking acts of gang-related violence in Philadelphia's history. A chilling message to anyone who dared to testify against him. In 2013, Kaboni Savage was convicted on 12 counts of murder in aid of racketeering, drug trafficking, and witness intimidation. The jury sentenced him to death, making him the first person in modern history to receive a federal death sentence in Pennsylvania for witness retaliation. Savage now sits on federal death row, isolated in a maximum security prison. His life story is a dark journey from potential athletic greatness to monstrous criminality. A man who used fear and violence to rule the streets. Kaboni Savage's legacy serves as a brutal reminder of how far organized drug operations can go when led by someone with no limits, no remorse, and no conscience. The life of Timothy Joseph McGee, the monster of Atwater Village. Timothy Joseph McGee, known to many as one of Los Angeles's most cold-blooded serial killers, was a high-ranking member of the Toonerville Rifa 13 gang, operating out of Atwater Village in Northeast LA. His reign of terror during the 1990s and early 2000s left a city gripped with fear and law enforcement scrambling for answers. Born in 1973, McGee grew up in Los Angeles and became affiliated with the Toonerville gang at a young age. What set McGee apart was his terrifying mix of intelligence, ruthlessness, and complete disregard for human life. He wasn't just a gang enforcer, he was a calculating executioner who hunted his victims like prey. Authorities believe he was responsible for at least 12 murders, though the actual number may be far higher. McGee often kept detailed notes of his crimes, writing rap lyrics and journals that chronicled killings in chilling detail. His victims ranged from rival gang members to innocent civilians, including a 16-year-old girl caught in the crossfire. His crimes were often committed in public with no fear of witnesses. Some were even murdered for simply being in the wrong place at the wrong time. After years on the run and topping the FBI's most wanted list, McGee was finally captured in 2003. His arrest ended one of the most violent manhunts in recent California history. In 2009, he was convicted of multiple murders and sentenced to death. Today, Timothy McGee sits on California's death row, a symbol of extreme gang violence and unchecked cruelty. His story is a haunting reminder of how dangerous a single individual can become when empowered by a criminal network and driven by a thirst for dominance, fear, and blood.